I am the, I apologize. Good evening, everyone. My name is Hassan Bennett. I am the interim chair of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission. The time is now 6:07 p.m. This meeting is called to order. This is a public meeting of the Citizens Police Oversight Commission that was properly advertised pursuant to the Sunshine Act. First, we'll call roll. All commissioners present, please say aye when your name is called. Commissioner John Solomon has an excused absence. Commissioner Melanie DeBose will be late to this meeting and excuse tardiness. Commissioner oh, she here?
I apologize for interrupting. Yes, she's here. If we can just pause for a second, we're making her panelist and we will endeavor to unmute her so she can confirm her attendance.
Okay. So while they're doing that, I'll just go to Commissioner Hakeem PA.
Present.
Commissioner Hakeem PA is present. Commissioner
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can. And we were just calling your name, Commissioner Melanie DeBois.
I was here all the time. Thank you and good evening.
Good evening to you, Commissioner DeBois. My name is Commissioner Hassan Bennett, and of course, I am present. As we are missing one of our commissioners tonight, I do not want to go over prior meeting minutes. So outside of that, has everyone had a chance to review tonight's meeting agenda prior to this meeting?
We have.
Do I have a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda?
I move for the approval of the meeting agenda.
That is Commissioner Melanie DeBose approving tonight's meeting agenda. Motioning to approve tonight's meeting agenda. Do I hear someone second that motion?
Commissioner PA seconds the motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda.
Commissioner PA second that motion. All in favor say aye.
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 Moving on. We are continuing our call of action to the community. The Citizens Police Oversight Commission has been stressing the importance of independent investigations to make this the hybrid model that City Council designed when it drafted the legislation. In order for this to be a hybrid model, we have data specialists, we have community outreach, we have audited monitors, we have policy analysts. What we need currently is the power to perform independent investigations. As the city of Philadelphia goes into collective bargaining agreement with the Fraternal Order of Police, we want to ensure that the Citizens Police Oversight Commission's independent investigation is a priority on the list. And with that said, I want to continue to urge our community and everyone in support of the legislation that was voted on by over 500,000 people to reach out to your city council member and reach out to the mayor's office and show your support the Citizens Police Oversight Commission's independent investigations. If you are unsure, the number has been posted, your city council numbers, the mayor number has been posted on CPOC's Instagram page, our Twitter page, our Facebook page, as well as the CPOC website. So be sure to show your support for our independent investigations and the Citizens Police Oversight Commission. And with that, I will pass it over to our dazzling executive director, Ms. Tanya McClary.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Wishing you happy holidays during this holiday season. We have a lot to report out on. You'll be hearing from two of our divisions tonight. You heard from the other two at the former meeting. So if we can go to the slides, that would be awesome. All righty. So we always just go over what our mission is. And so our mission is to oversee and investigate the conduct, policies, and practices of the Philadelphia Police Department. And so I was so excited that Chair Bennett talked about that piece about investigations, because as you can see in our mission statement, that's one of the things we're supposed to be able to do. Currently, we receive complaints of police misconduct. We audit, monitor internal affairs investigations and police disciplinary processes. We sit and vote on PBI panels at the police discipline hearings. We conduct oversight of police shootings. We analyze police data. We develop policy recommendations and reports, and we engage in outreach and training. And so you can see the one bullet that we're missing there is that we conduct independent investigations. So we're hoping that sometime next year this slide will change and that bullet point will be added. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give an update on the seating of the new commissioners. Just want to remind the community that the process is that a selection panel has been emboldened and put in place, and those members were appointed by City Council and the mayor. Just to remind you who the members are, Anton Moore and Stanley Crawford were appointed by the mayor's office, by Bilal Kayam and Christina Vega and Caroline Stack were appointed by City Council. So those are currently the people that are conducting the investigations to fill the seats. We have 5 vacant seats on the commission. And so those 5 people are working to identify people to fill those seats. Next slide. I wanted to give people a kind of a more of a calendar kind of timeline. So the selection panel is currently in the final stages of interviewing candidates for the commission positions. The last round of interviews will be in January. And so we were excited about the number of people that came out in the community to apply to sit on the commission. And so those interviews will be going through January. Also in January, hopefully will be a town hall. Once the selection panel has narrowed down the candidates to the final 5, we are going to have host a public town hall. At this town hall that you all, the residents of Philadelphia, can vet the candidates and provide feedback. And that we will assist in organizing and managing that event, and we will share the exact date on our website once it is finalized. So you all will have a chance to meet the candidates. When we get to those 5, we're asking all of them to clear their calendars to be available for that day. And as you can see, we'll let you know when that is. Once that happens, there will be a committee of the whole hearing. And so following that town hall that I just referenced, there will be a committee of the whole hearing where Council Member Jones and I will present the 5 candidates. At that hearing, Councilmember Jones will introduce a resolution for the formal nomination of each commissioner. And then the final countdown, the final step in the process would be a final confirmation. So the final confirmation of the new commissioners will take place on the Thursday following the committee of the whole. So once again, once those dates are finalized, we will update you. But whatever day the hearing of the whole is, the following Thursday is when there will be a final confirmation of the commissioners. So we're very excited about that. We are really excited to welcome 5 new people to the commission, whoever they may be. There has been some really phenomenal candidates, some really, really phenomenal candidates. And so, as I stated, that they're continuing to be interviewed. And so I am hopeful that we will have just 5 dynamic people to work with the 4 dynamic ones that we already have. And so I just want to just underscore Chair Bennett's call for action. Please still call the mayor. Please still call your city council person about independent investigations. We have a December 31st kind of looming deadline in terms of having CPOC, that theme, that request be a part of what's called the term sheets, meaning these are the things that the 2 sides, meaning the city of Philadelphia and the Fraternal Order Police, want to kind of hash out and talk to each other about. So we need to make sure that from the city of Philadelphia side, that CPOC's independent investigations is among the list of things that will be considered during this negotiation contract. And so with that, we can go to the next slide, please. And well, let me stop here. I'm sorry. Let me stop and find out if any of the commissioners have any questions about the seating of the new commissioners.
Thank you,
I
Ms.
do have,
Tanya.
yeah,
Elder?
yeah, I do have a question, and it really is predicated on something our chair lifted up in previous conversation. I'm wondering if the selection panel has taken extra caution to make sure that there's diversity among the group of potential commissioners.
They are doing that as much as possible. Of course, they're limited by who apply, but they are in their discussions. They are definitely making sure that they're hoping to get people that represent all walks of life in the city of Philadelphia. So it's definitely on their mind in terms of hopefully slating a set of candidates that is very diverse and represents wide constituencies in the city. So yes, Commissioner DeBose, they have been talking about that during their discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner DeBose, and thank you for your answer, Ms. McClary. Commissioner PA, do you have any questions or comments for our executive director?
No, that was the only concern. As far as diversity with the next individuals brought on. I guess touching further on that. Maybe we don't have an answer. Is there any type of like qualifications that are set in place or a part of the selection panel? Is there anything that might disqualify someone? Like, are we looking at certain zip codes, or is it kind of just based off of who already applied, and we're kind of just picking from that?
With their the selection panel is picking from the people that applied. The only there were a few limitations for applicants. One, they had to live in the city of Philadelphia, so we actually did have some people that looked great, but they didn't live in Philly, so they were disqualified. And then they could not live in a district where there's a current commissioner. So no one in the district where the four of you are currently serving could actually apply. So we actually did have people from your districts, but because you all are sitting in those seats, they were not eligible. So Commissioner PA, those were really kind of the only two kind of things that kind of rose to the top. And also they couldn't yeah, so those are the two things. And Catherine, if I'm missing anything, you can jump in, but those were the kind of two things off the top that disqualified people if they were sitting in a district where one of you was sitting and if they didn't live in the city of Philadelphia.
Okay, thank you.
I'll jump in just to quickly add that Tanya has done a great job making sure that the applications going to the selection panel communicate to the candidates any other restrictions on their candidacy, such as you can't be holding public office. So that includes being like a committee person in your neighborhood or something like that. So everyone, where there was a question, those things were communicated as well.
Yeah. And people are so excited about your work that I think every candidate that was actually in a position said that they would resign from that position if they were chosen on the commission. So yes. I think that says a lot about the work of the commission and how people feel the importance of it. I think literally every candidate that had that conflict said they would step down from their current position if they were chosen to sit on the commission.
Thank you, Ms. McClary. Thank you, Commissioner PA, for your question. Before I pass it back to you or let you continue, let our executive director continue. Of course, we always want to honor and respect our executive director, but no buts. But cameras are off this evening as we have commissioners traveling from one place to another for family and the holidays. So I just wanted to just give you that heads up that I spoke with the commissioners previous about it, and this is the reason why all the cameras are not on for you, executive director,
right?
and
Thank
as
you.
well as the community.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. If we can go to the next slide. So this is going to be an update for the community. I have done some restructuring in the office. And so we used to have an auditing and monitoring division and also a policy division. We no longer have set those divisions separated. We have actually combined those divisions, and I'm really excited. And now it's called the Auditing Policy and Research Division, so the APR. And I'm
Mm.
really excited that Director Zajac has decided, Janine, to step into that role. And she was our director over monitoring and audits. And now she is stepped into the dual role of also overseeing our policy work. So I'm really excited to work with her in this new role and um, to see where we go and grow. And so you will no longer see policy listed by itself. You will be seeing the auditing policy and research division. And also for the commissioners, I've changed all of the they used to be called units. I've changed everything to a division. So you will no longer see like the outreach division unit. You will now, every unit is called a division. And so that's a new addition as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our director of this brand new department to talk about the work that she's been engaged in and her team since we last met in November.
Great. Thank you, Tanya. It's going to take some getting used to the new division name, but I'll get there. So the work that we've been focused on in the last month is receiving responses from the police department on the audits that we have completed. And I want to just give a quick refresher on what these audits entail and how this process works for anyone who's not familiar. So our audits are individual reviews of investigations into complaints against police. And these reviews include all case file materials, interview memos, and body-worn camera if applicable. And we review the documents that are provided to us by the police department. So what happens is an investigation at Internal Affairs into a complaint made by a resident, and then that investigation then gets sent through their chain of command and reviewed and approved, and then makes its way over to us, where my team is able to review each investigation and determine what we think about the investigation and how it was done. So we review how the investigator worked, we review the conclusions that they've come to, and we ask a series of standard questions about each case that we're looking at to make sure that our reviews are consistent. And then we have the opportunity then to send feedback to the investigator about our thoughts on the investigation. So this allows us to have input into a complaint investigation while it is still open. And that helps us to give our civilian perspective, our oversight perspective, and hopefully make some improvements to an investigation if we see some that need to be made. So an example of a recommendation we might make for investigation would be that the investigator should interview all officers present during the incident or explain why those officers were not interviewed. We understand decisions are made during investigations, and we just want to see how those decisions were made so we can get on board with those decisions or say maybe some more work needs to be done. So that's sort of the rundown of what we're up to. We have 10 business days to complete our review once we receive an investigation. So that can end up being a pretty quick turnaround time for us to complete these really in-depth reviews. So our team can be pretty swamped from time to time with these reviews, but we've worked through our process and we've gotten it to a pretty good place. We're not currently receiving new investigations from the police department for these reviews. So that is supposed to pick back up in January, but this has given us an opportunity to review a lot of the data, take a look at whether the police department is accepting our recommendations, and collect some of that and be able to share it with all of you. So we can go to the next slide. So this is sort of another slice of the data that I presented last month. I've been able to keep looking at what the recommendations are, if they've been accepted or not, and sort of diving deeper as I go. The goal is to sort of compile all of this data that I've shared over the last couple of months at these meetings into a larger report that tells the full story. We're still receiving responses from the police department on these audits, so we don't have a full data set yet, but once we do have those, we'll be able to really get in there with the numbers and put some information together to share with the public all at once. So the slides that I'll present have some descriptive data about the audits we conducted, as well as information about the recommendations we made and the responses that we have been receiving so far. So again, it was 122 audits in total, with 98 full internal affair investigations that we looked at. So there were 24 divisional cases. Those are not full investigations. They're low-level misconduct allegations that are investigated or looked at by a commanding officer of a district or a unit. So 98 full investigations. So we can go to the next slide, please. All right, so I was able to pull some information to show which police districts were most represented in this sample of 122 audits that we looked at. So the graph here doesn't include all of the districts because it was kind of difficult to read. So I just included the most highly represented districts on this. So the 8 districts pictured on the graph were the ones with the highest number of complaint investigations that we looked at, and that would be a total of 7 or more complaints that we looked at. So the 14th district had the highest number of complaint investigations that we reviewed. So I'm sorry, the 9th district was the highest with 14 cases. So this, looking at these numbers of where these complaints were taking place, can help us develop additional projects in the future and get a sense of which districts are really having the highest complaint volume in recent times. All the other districts that are not represented on this graph had fewer complaints or investigations present in our sample, somewhere between 2 and 5 complaints, and the 26th district had the lowest number, and they had just 1 complaint investigation in this sample. Go to the next slide. All right, so I wanted to include some information about all of these audits broken down by complaint classification. So the complaint classification is sort of the highest level broad category that represents the most serious allegation that's present in the complaint. So a third of the cases that we looked at in this 122 total were related to lack of service. So that is allegations such as someone called 911, no one ever showed up, or an officer didn't complete a report properly. So that is the most common allegation that we receive at CPOC as a complaint, if I'm not mistaken. And I know it is the most common type of case that internal affairs receives as a complaint against police. So that continues to be the most common type of complaint that they receive. The other most common complaint classifications were departmental violations, and that can cover a wide range of misconduct allegations, ranging from like an improper stop or an improper vehicle stop, improper search, all the way down to someone not providing their name and badge number when asked. Verbal abuse and physical abuse were also pretty common in our sample of this first group of audits. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So of the 122 cases that we audited, we had feedback for 86 of them, or 70%. So we drafted memos that we would have sent to the police department for all of those. Not all 86 of those actually required a response from the police department. So sometimes we would send a memo with a recommendation citing more of a best practice or something we would want to see in the future in investigations, but wouldn't necessarily change the outcome of the investigation or didn't necessarily need a response immediately. It was something we wanted to note for our concern. So especially if maybe there was a really long gap in the investigation that didn't make a lot of sense. Like in the final interviews were done and the investigation wasn't closed for 6 months. We would want to note that and say, you should explain this in the report in the future, something of that to that effect. So 79 of the audits we did required a response from PPD, and 75 of those cases were full investigations. So this 75 this bucket of 75 investigations that we looked at that we were asking for a response about. That's going to be the focus of some of these next slides, because I want to get down into the recommendations we made, and more importantly, what recommendations they are accepting, or the rate of acceptance of these recommendations. So we can go to the next slide, please. Great. So looking at the classification of the incidents that I talked about, some had a higher incidence of us needing to send feedback to the investigators, while others had a more even spread. So physical abuse investigations that we looked at, we had feedback on those almost 80% of the time. So 14 of those we had feedback, and 4 of them we didn't. A kind of similar breakdown with departmental violations cases. So these more broad ranges of misconduct we typically had some questions about, whereas cases that were more related to something like verbal abuse was more evenly spread, sort of like half and half. We had feedback and half we didn't. So that was interesting to see that maybe a less complicated investigation related to something like verbal abuse we didn't have as much feedback for, but something that could have even more legal issues involved, like Fourth Amendment search seizure, we typically would have some questions and have some recommendations to make for those. Next slide, please. So of the responses that we have received from the police department so far, we've gotten 49 of them, so about 65%. So we're still waiting on a pretty good chunk of those, and we keep receiving them slowly. They're trickling in. So this was as of, a week or 10 days when I was making these slides and creating this data. So they keep coming in, and hopefully we can complete our data set soon. When we get responses from the police department, we review them. We review any updated materials, such as the PC memo or the report of investigation, and we enter all of that information into a spreadsheet. The Excel spreadsheet we have for this is like pretty epic. We have all the recommendations listed out and whether they're being accepted or not, and we're always updating it and trying to complete that data set as quickly as we can. But we're still waiting on a pretty good chunk, like I said. Next slide, please. All right, so I wanted to take a look at how long it's been taking to get these responses to our audits, because we would want to see this improving over time. This graph is kind of all over the place, but there's a trend line in the middle. That dotted line is showing us sort of where it's trending. So it's gone down, which is good to see that the response time for the responses we have received has gotten quicker, but we are waiting on a bunch. So there are some responses that are outstanding, and they date back to July and August. So this may not be a true representation of how quickly they are getting back to us once we're making these recommendations. And our full analysis on this won't really be available until we get all of the responses back. But it was positive to see this trending in this direction, that time was going down, but we'll have to wait and see once we get the full data set. We can go to the next slide. And I wanted to also take a look at the number of recommendations we were making in these cases over time. So what we would hope to see is that at the beginning of this auditing process, we're making lots of recommendations, and then hopefully they start to adopt some of these recommendations that we make time and time again, and maybe adjust their process a little bit, or change their practices to anticipate some of the things that we typically have questions about. So we would want to see the average number of recommendations per case over time go down. This graph is showing us there was a slight decrease over time of the number of recommendations per case. And we would hope to see maybe even more significant change to this line as time goes on. But I thought that was an interesting thing to see, that we have seen slight improvement, but maybe not as much as we would hope. And we can go to the next slide, please. And, the big question is, how often are they actually listening to our recommendations? How often are they accepting what we are saying and adopting our recommendations into the investigations? So of the responses we have received, about 50% of the recommendations we have made were rejected. So that's really something that I want to pay more attention to and be in conversation with them about. I think there has been a little bit of misunderstanding about what it is that we are after with these audits. And the goal is to improve the quality of these investigations and just improve accountability across the board, improve consistency, and just grow trust in the investigations process. And I think that in that way, hopefully we and the police department can be on the same side and really have some shared goals there. So I think it is a new process for them, and it's been a learning curve, I think. And I'm hoping we can come to some more understanding and we can get some more of our recommendations adopted as time goes on. We want all of the reports of investigation to be really clear and contain all relevant information so that any future readers of these cases are really understanding what happened and that the integrity of the investigation is apparent. That is really important as the discipline process proceeds, as these cases are decided for discipline. If it gets to an arbitrator at some point for discipline, we want any future readers, this could be years down the line, to read an investigation and really understand it, and for the investigation to be very, very thorough. So that's really what we're after with this. We can go to the next slide. And the number of audits that resulted in recommendations changed slightly over time, but additional months of data are going to be needed to sort of identify this trend. So the graph is showing of the cases that we received, did we have recommendations? And this is broken down by month to sort of show how this may change over time. So again, we would want to see sort of a steady trend being present in these bars, but that's not the case here. We ended up having more feedback over the months of August and September than we did in the other months. August and September are combined here because we received only like a handful of cases in September, so it didn't really make sense for it to be its own standalone month. But the number of cases where we had feedback went up and then kind of went slightly down again. So again, that's something we would hope to see a steady trend in as time goes on. In October and September, we did select some cases that we would read and say, okay, we know we don't have time to look at every single case, but after doing a first read, we have some questions. Let's do a deeper dive and pay closer attention. So we may have selected for cases that definitely needed feedback. So that's something to think about with this data as well. But these numbers are all just interesting little tidbits that we're able to pull out of all this data that we're collecting. And again, I hope to compile it all in a bigger story to tell more about all of this. So we can go to the next slide. So just some takeaways, spotting the issues within these cases, but has been very informative, and being able to track all this data has been really a great experience. But being able to discuss this process with the police department and consider solutions has been a really great development out of this. So it's been a really interesting time to have these high-level conversations with the police department and point out some of these issues that have been ongoing and hear what they have to say about it and work through some potential ideas for improvement. So that's been a great experience. We're excited to continue doing these audits in 2025. This has shed light on certain aspects of internal affairs and investigations that continue to spark conversations and potential reforms. We see some, for example, we see some inconsistency at internal affairs with how they handle certain types of administrative allegations that maybe complainants don't raise but are present in an investigation, and just trying to continue the thread of these reforms we want to recommend and be able to continue those conversations. I think we're heading in a great direction with that. And just a side note, we only audit complaints against police that are made by members of the public. There are many internal investigations that CPOC never gets to see. And so we hope that encouraging consistency in investigations related to complaints made by members of the public can bring more consistency to investigations across the board. So that's another thing I'd like to keep in mind as we're doing all this very labor-intensive work. So we can go to the next slide. This might be the last one for me. It is. So if anyone has any questions about these numbers, I feel like every month I rattle off a bunch of numbers and data, and sort of leave you with it, but I hope that we can put it all together and have a report and hopefully come up with some good recommendations to make to the department as well that summarize all of these findings we've been able to come to over the last few months. But any questions, I'll be happy to answer if I can.
I have a statement and perhaps a question that I will, in all probability, direct to our executive director. This is Commissioner DuBose. So my statement is, I want to thank you, Director, for these thorough reports every month and keeping us abreast of the nature of your work, the effectiveness of your work, and even the areas of interest in terms of improving the data process, the processing of the data and the acquisition of information that lets the public know that we're taking seriously the complaints and the concerns, and that we're on the same team in terms of making sure that justice is served. My question is for Director McClary. Having heard you share earlier tonight about the merging of the teams, I'm not sure about the appropriateness of this question, and you can correct me if I'm thinking incorrectly. Will the merging of the teams in any way impede our effectiveness when we are released to do the kind of independent investigations that our Constitution speaks to, and our legislation speaks to, and the kind of independence that we're striving for? Will the merging of the teams in any way impede the progress that we want to make in that area?
No, because the two teams that were merged were auditing and monitoring and policy. We have not touched the investigations unit. The plan is to grow that unit. So the merging of those two teams have nothing in really to do with Mr. Cotto's division around investigation. They will support it, but it's not going to impede the work that his division will be doing with the independent investigations.
And you imagine that they will be able to handle the weight of maintaining that data and monitoring the policies, even when we're operating with independent investigatory powers?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. And thank you again.
Commissioner DuBose. Commissioner PA, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have a question, right? I have a comment first, and then I'll follow up with a question. My comment is, I like the APR division. I just like the way it sounds. And I'm excited that about this division. It seems appropriate and effective that the people, our staff doing the auditing, the monitoring, and the policy would work in unison, right? In collaboration in one division. So I do like that, and I thank you, and I hope each one of you blossom and continue in the amazing work you have been doing. My question is, our recommendations that we provide in regards to the complaint, auditing and monitoring the complaints, right? The recommendations we provide, is there any way the constituents, the community can access these? Hello?
I unmuted, but I am thinking.
I thought something was wrong on my end.
No, I mean, I think the goal is to definitely release some information in the aggregate about the recommendations we make. So to be specific about the recommendations we make, how many times we have made them, how often they were accepted. Anything more specific than that, I don't know the answer to. I don't know if Tanya, you have anything.
Yeah, maybe this is a question for Catherine Twigg, our attorney, or our executive director, Tanya McClary.
I mean, we have to do a better job of this. Our office makes a lot of recommendations and do a lot of things to improve department, and we don't often report that out to the public. So that is one of the things that's on my radar screen. You'll probably start to see summaries of our recommendations and PPD's response in our annual report, but also even more timely when we're making them. But that is definitely on my radar screen because there's so much work that this office does that the community doesn't know, and some of that's our fault because we're not telling people. And so Director Zajak's unit has been doing tremendous work in making recommendations. And we need to document that, and we also need to document what PPD's response is, or even their lack of response to our recommendations. So we are going to be brainstorming with our communications officer and our outreach director around better ways to communicate the recommendations that we're making so that people can see the effectiveness of the office.
Thank you. My next comment is to Commissioner PA. Are you around a computer or anything? Commissioner PA.
I'm moving in right now. Be around the computer in like 2 seconds.
All right. When you get around a computer, could you write this down? Just publicizing our recommendations. Maybe that's a goal that we can assist with in the future for 2025.
Okay, got it.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hassan, we have some questions from the public pertaining to what Janine just presented. Do you mind if I read them aloud? And
go ahead.
Okay.
I have no problem with it.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
So Janine, one of the questions was, would a longer turnaround time be helpful so you have more time to do all the audits? If so, how would that happen?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think more time is kind of a blessing and a curse. I think the 10-day turnaround time has been tight, but it has been working, I would say. I mean, I think there's some things that end up being out of our control with staff vacations or staff going to a conference or something like that that can change our capacity from time to time with doing these. But yeah, I mean, I think more time could be helpful, but the volume never stops. So the number of cases compared to the number of staff we have doing this work, I think is more the challenge. And so I think, being able to expand staffing would probably be the better solution to doing this. But we are able to get to nearly all of the cases that come in to do our audits. So it would happen through just conversations with the department and agreeing to a change to that time frame. But I think the 10 business day has so far been pretty good, but yeah, I appreciate the question.
Great.
Ms. Jody, who did they provide a name with that question? Or
Yes.
did they want us to remain anonymous?
No,
Can you
it's under
provide the name?
Sylvia Metzer.
I did not hear. I apologize.
Sylvia Metzer.
All right, Sylvia Metzer. Thank you.
Yeah, and then we have one more. What happens when a recommendation is rejected? Is there a follow-up? And this is from Susan Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great question also. I appreciate that. So right now, I think that's part of the process that we are trying to figure out. Our recommendations are not binding, but I think that's where, when I was speaking about maybe there has been a little bit of miscommunication about what we're after. Sometimes we'll ask for interview all the officers or explain why, and they'll respond and explain why, but then they don't actually include that information in the report of investigation. And that's where it really needs to go. I'm glad they're telling me in this document that we're receiving, but it should be going into the report. So, so I think, you know, communicating a little bit more with them about what we're after and what we want to see as a result. And, you know, if there are things they reject that we really disagree with, then having that conversation with some leadership there, or really coming back to that and having that discussion. And I think that is possible and could be necessary in some cases. So I think that would kind of be the answer I would give for now.
Jody?
I think those were the only two questions.
Okay.
I think we actually did have an additional question, and it's from one of the same people who had asked originally. I can read that aloud. Jody's doing a lot of hosting duties right now.
All is well.
Thank you for your patience. So this is also from Sylvia Metzler. She says, it sounds like the PPD is not taking up many of your recommendations. When and if they do, you will have less work to do. Do you know why they are responding to so few of your recs?
I don't know that I have a good answer for why. I don't know that there's a good answer for that. But I think continuing the conversations about the process in general can shed light on that, and continue to develop the relationship and the process, and I think can only be beneficial here. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for why, but I think it's something we can try to dig into more and try to understand. But I appreciate that question.
And I think that this also, I'm glad that the community is engaged. This also just shows you what oversight offices are up against. And so I think a lot of times the narrative is skewed against the oversight office in terms of our viability, in terms of our, ability to do things. But this is such a unique job. You know, if we don't have cooperation from the police department, it really does impede our work. And so, so I just wanted to put that out there. It's such a unique job. Like, you know, the Philadelphia Police Department is our job, right? And so when they don't cooperate with us, it really impedes it versus, you know, maybe the water department or sanitation. They don't have these same type of issues with other city agencies. And so I'm glad that you are asking those really impactful questions in terms of, and like Director Zajac said, we can't really speak to why, but I just want the community to understand that when there is lack of response or slow response or no response, it really does impact our work. But I'm going to toot our own horn and say, but my team and my leadership have been able to, my leaders, my directors have been able to really kind of get around some of these things to do work despite the obstacles.
And I'll add one more thing just to jump in. I'm sorry, but I want to actually give some credit where it's due also, because some individual investigators I have spoken with or have run into members of my team, and they've had really good conversations. They'll ask questions and say, what does this finding mean versus that finding? Like, I think there's a lot of there's been some really great interactions that show some of the individual investigators are very willing and open to working with us and understand where we're coming from and are very appreciative of the work that we do. And I've heard that from different levels in the department. So I think it is it's just kind of a bit of a culture change. And I think that takes time, and it takes a lot of work to push it forward. But there has been some really positive moments with individuals, and that gives me a lot of hope. So I want to just end on that.
Well, we actually have one more question. Do some of your recommendations conflict with rules of law?
And not that I can
No.
think of.
No, we would never make a recommendation that's not legal or that's against the police department's policy. We could potentially make a recommendation that's not in their policy to suggest that they adopt it, but we're never going to ask them to do something that's not legal. And that's, we have a general counsel, very talented Counsel Twig, and she vets much of our work to make sure that we aren't doing what you just asked about.
I wanted to say, well, first of all, thank you, Miss Darlene B., Miss Susan, Miss Sylvia Mitzler, and
Metzger.
Misker and Susan Thomas for your participation. My next comment I would like to share or add to this is, last meeting, our Director of Investigation, Nick Carter, emphasized reporting and what to write in a report when we report. And he spoke on the training that he would ensure that all investigators under CPOC would have in conducting independent investigation. Once again, we hear Ms. Deneen emphasizing what's missing from out the report. CATs, complaints against police. So once again, I would like to call the communities, have this call of action. To once again, call your council person, call the mayor, and once again emphasize the importance of independent investigations conducted by the Citizens Police Oversight Commission.
Great. Well, Commissioner, if there's no more questions for the APR division, I think our outreach and constituent services division is ready to roll.
All right. Good Thursday evening, everyone. My name is Talia Grimmage. I am the Director of Outreach and Constituent Services. I have the esteemed pleasure of leading this team of MVPs and superstars that you see named here. The Outreach and Training Division is tasked with a lot of the forward-facing efforts of the agency. And so this team of MVPs, it is a lot of nights, it's a lot of weekends. We are attending events, we're having community conversations, and of course, amplifying all of the amazing work that our other units and divisions are working on. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we've been up to since we joined you last. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so one of the things that we did was we hosted a holiday toy and clothing drive. We asked the community and our partners to donate toys, gloves, hats, and scarves so that we could be supportive of some of the families in the 22nd Police District, as well as the organization Bosses Give Back. And so we were able to get a number of donations from individuals that wanted to support us in that effort. We also prepared with the 22nd Police District for an amazing holiday event, which you will hear a little bit more about in a moment. And so this is just some photographs of us as we were preparing for that amazing community activity. And of course, we also tabled at the Together We Can resource fair that was in the 9th Police District. And typically there are flyers and different things that we will share on our social media if people would like to know what the Outreach and Training Division is up to. We can move to the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause here because I think our executive director may want to speak about this wonderful opportunity that we had. We joined the ACLU PA Philadelphia chapter. They hosted an amazing panel on the intersectionality of policing and technology. Our executive director was the keynote speaker for that event. I was there, several of us were there, and it was a wonderful chance to just kind of hear from some experts in this field. So I'll pause and let Tanya talk a little bit about her experience and what that night entailed.
So it was a really, really wonderful event, and I was so honored to be the keynote speaker. And one of the things about the ACLU is that if many of you, a lot of you have heard that name, but they are one of the premier legal organizations nationally that take on really, really tough issues. And so this year, one of the focus for this annual meeting was to talk about policing, surveillance, and technology. And so they had a phenomenal panel. You'll see the panelists in that top box up there that really brought it home about some of the things that are happening right here in the city of Philadelphia that are impacted by the police department's use of technology, et cetera. So we talked about, facial recognition software and drones and just all kind of things. But it was a phenomenal event, and I was very honored to represent the office there and to also put out a call to action. It was really a wonderful opportunity to engage with citizens or community members in Philadelphia who had a real interest in helping CPOC, be front and central in terms of issues of policing here in the city of Philadelphia. And so to help us do the call for the independent investigation. So very, very excited to have participated and to really be building these relationships with the legal community in terms of how they can help to, make sure that the work that our office is able to do gets done. And so I was just very honored and thankful for my team members that also came out that night. And so I think that it was fitting to, when I opened my speech, to just take a little bit and look at the modern day era. One of the things that's exciting about Philadelphia is we've been doing police oversight for 66 years. But for most people, they started learning about police oversight with the murder of George Floyd. And so part of my speech was to really honor him in his death as sparking a lot of cities to start taking closer looks at their police department. So I will stop there. Turn it back over to Director Grimmage.
Okay, if we go to the next slide, Tanya, I believe we actually have a snippet of your speech that we wanted to play for the attendees in case you missed it.
Now, I do want to thank two of our commissioners. Our chair came out as well as Commissioner John Solomon. So it was nice to have the support of the commission doing this event.
I think we're just waiting for the video to come up. Okay, there we go.
Does the video have audio?
So it does have audio. It looks like we may have to work on that. But just to give some context, that first lead in, Tanya was silent for 29 seconds. Just to really illustrate what it was like for George Floyd, who had former officer Derek Chauvin on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. So that silence was very intentional. And perhaps we'll be able to get the sound up and running in a little bit. But as someone that was there, that heard the speech, the whole room was very moved. And it just really tied into the rest of the evening when the panel just talked about, just how policing and technology and all of these things come together. So I'm just looking forward to more events like that. Okay, looks like we may have the sound.
9 minutes and 29 seconds. When I hear I can't breathe, these are the last words that George Floyd said while he was being murdered by ex-police officer George Chauvin, who was called to the scene of a convenience store where a clerk thought that Mr. Floyd had passed a $20 counterfeit bill. Whenever I think about Mr. Floyd and the events that unfolded on May 25th of 2020, it often reminds me about the value of life. He's gone because of $20. So I'm asking you today, what's a Black life's value today? What's a brown life's value today? What's a woman's life's value today? What is a trans person's life value today? What is an unhoused person's value today? What is a person's life that has disabilities? What is that worth today? What does it mean when an officer can kneel on a human being's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds with 3 other colleagues standing around him and no one doing anything? It wasn't that they were unaware, because there were a lot of people standing on the sidewalk saying, "What are you doing? Get off his neck, do whatever," but there somehow just seemed to be silence or a bubble, etc. And so it made me think, when we are pleading for somebody's life and when the person themselves is telling you they can't breathe, where are we in society? Where is our humanity when we cannot even give mercy when someone is pleading for their life? And so for many people, what happened to George Floyd awakened something in them, and for the first time in a long time, many of Americans and people around the world started saying, do we have a problem with policing in the United States? But for those of us that have been doing this work for a long time, unfortunately, George Floyd was the combination of a flawed system of policing in the United States since its history in the roots and emergence out of slavery. So I'm going to date myself a little bit. Back in December of 1993, there's a rapper called KRS-One. And he came out with a song, Sound of the Police. And when the song is about criticizing police brutality and systematic racism, and it begins with the whooping twice, whoop, whoop, and that is supposed to be the sound of a police siren. Whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the police. Whoop, whoop, that's the sound of the beast. But I want to focus on verse 2 of that song, because KRS made the connection back in 1993. He said, now here's a little truth, open up your eye. While y'all checking out the boom bap, check the exercise. So take the word overseer and make it like a sample. Repeat it very quickly in a crew, for example. Overseer, 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 overseer. Officer, 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 officer. Yeah, officer from overseer. You need a little clarity? Check the similarity. The overseer rode around the plantation. The officer is off patrolling all the nation. The overseer could stop you what you're doing. The officer will pull you over just when he's pursuing. The overseer had the right to get ill. And if you fought back, the overseer had the right to kill. The officer has the right to arrest. And if you fight back, they put a hole in your chest. Woo, woo. That's the sound of the police.
Listen, all right. I just want to take a minute and just snap it up a little bit. If you missed it, you should have been there, so please follow us on social media so that you can know about some of these things, so that you can come out and join us. Listen, I was there. The room was really, really riveted by Director McCleary's keynote address. And as somebody that loves hip hop, I was loving the references. And we know hip hop music has always talked about policing and many of these issues that we face in our community. So, like I said, if you weren't there, you missed a moment. But hopefully you'll join us at the next one. We can go on to the next slide. Okay. So one of the things that the outreach and training division is really committed to is hearing the lived experiences of many of the people that live in this city, because we understand that policing affects us all differently, and all of us have these experiences that really shape who we are and how we see the world. So we recently had an opportunity to participate in the Institute of Community Justice Reentry Simulation, and that was held at Philadelphia Fight. And so this reentry simulation was an interactive experience, and it was geared towards people that are working in the reentry community and with justice impacted residents. And so this activity was simulating many of the barriers and challenges that returning citizens experience during their first month of release. And so the activity was a 1 hour activity with prompts, and then it was followed by a group discussion and a panel of returning citizens to just talk a little bit about their experience. And so many of the staff participated. We had Commissioner Solomon and Commissioner Bennett joined us as well. And I really, just for my part, I will say I think it was extremely eye-opening because you have an image of what you think people experience when they are released from prison. And oftentimes what you think is nothing like what it actually is. And so one of the things that I really, really enjoyed was that they had this huge whiteboard in the middle of the room. You can see it in one of the pictures here. And so they asked us, as we were going through this interactive experience, to just write down what our feelings were. And so many people wrote words like, confusion, at where to go and who to talk to and who to offer support to, frustration at how long it takes to obtain resources, hopelessness due to lack of funds, feeling overwhelmed with the multitude of responsibilities, temptation to take unnecessary chances to change your circumstances. And many people also talked about and wrote down that they were encouraged at the support that they got from other incarcerated people. So basically, real quick, I'll just set it up for you. You were given a name tag and you were given a sheet of paper that gave you tasks that you were supposed to complete. And so each module was separated into 15-minute increments. And so your first 15 minutes represented 1 week. And so in 15 minutes, you were supposed to go around to different stations. Maybe you had to go pay restitution. Maybe you had to go see your parole officer. Maybe you had to go buy groceries or pay rent. And there were all of these stations situated throughout the room, and you had to get them done in a certain amount of time. Different people had different amounts of money that they were given, just to kind of simulate how many of us have different financial circumstances. Some of us had to pay restitution or had to pay fines. Some of us had family support, where when you looked at your sheet of paper, it may have said that you have to pay all of these things. You have to pay, restitution, but maybe your family would pay that for you versus another participant who had to figure out how to pay that themselves. There were some of us that had to report to work. But if you reported to work, that meant you weren't able to go see your probation or parole officer because you were working during the day. So it really just opened up your mind to just a lot of the things that happen when you come home, and how it's just not easy to just get back in the swing of things because all of us come from different circumstances. So what I'd like to do right now, because I've been talking quite a bit, is maybe open the floor to Attorney Twigg, Director McClary, Commissioner Bennett. Maybe if you want to just share what your reflections are and how you thought, the experience went, and anything you just want to share with the community about that activity.
General Counsel Twigg, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you so much for explaining the event, Talia. I completely agree. I found this like a very informative, eye-opening event that, we were there just for a morning, but I think the exercise does an excellent job of helping you understand the pressures that a person might be under and how, you know, many constraints are on you and how few hours there are in the day to get through all of the things you're trying to accomplish when you are trying to return and rebuild a life, right, outside of an institution. I was certainly struck by how much harder everything was than I expected. And it just reminds you how I think for me, what some of the participants said about kind of solidarity between us going a really long way. Somebody who is willing to help you or explain something to you or point you in the right direction is absolutely essential. And so it reminded me of our kind of common humanity and that we're all in this together. And that is very much the only way we will succeed. But I highly recommend the exercise to anyone who has the opportunity to do it. And I was also very grateful that we got to hear from so many panelists who are formerly incarcerated people who are now working to support that population. They have such amazing networks of folks who are just who've had those experiences and are helping people navigate rebuilding their lives. And I'm so grateful that we had the opportunity.
Thank you, Attorney Twig. I am now going to call on our executive director, Ms. Tanya McClary, who participated as well.
I thought it was really awesome. As somebody that has done criminal defense work like for 30 years, you are still, you know, I don't get to see a lot of my clients when they leave me, right, as a client in terms of what's happening with their lives and putting the pieces back together. And so I thought it was really eye-opening and also just really you know, a plug. I come from the public defense world, and our chair comes from that world as well in terms of working with the public defender office. And it's so clear now why you see that a lot of officers are trying to get social workers on their teams and other things, because we really have to look at people holistically. And I think that we don't do that a lot in the criminal justice system. We just kind of just deal with you in the situation that you're in right now instead of looking at you as a whole person, as a human being. So I thought they did an excellent job. I agree with Council Twig. If you get a chance to do it, please do it. I think it's really important for us to understand the challenges that people face. And hopefully it gives us some empathy, right? It helps us to understand people a little bit better. So I'm always excited about things that help give us an insight into other people's lives. So I want to thank Director Grimmage for making that opportunity available for us.
Does any other staff members that participated have any comments and regarding their participation in the reentry simulation? And with that, I guess I'll go. This was a tale of two coins for me, right? A two-sided sword. Not only am I in the Public Defenders Association, I come from a different side of reentry, being wrongfully convicted of a homicide I didn't commit and later exonerated, where there's not really many avenues for those that re-enter society. The opportunities are limited for those that are wrongfully convicted. So going through this, I recognize that the support, one thing I want to say is when we came in, as Director Grimmett said, we all received a sheet of paper. And to me, that each sheet of paper represented the support you had in coming home. Some people were allowed to live with their family. Some people were at the halfway house. Some people had to pay rent. Some people had to pay rent without a job. Some people had transportation. Some people had money. Other people had a guitar that they were supposed to trade in for the pawn shop. The guitar was valued at $100, but the pawn shop gave you $50 and you left away feeling cheated. At each table or each section of the simulation, you went for help, just a handout, a lookout, and a lot of them you were turned down, right? So you were forced to deal with that adversity alone until you begin to ask your partner. And that is another thing for reentry, finding help, right? And the people that are involved in reentry actually wanting to help you, right? So when I say it's a tale of two sides, um, as the public defender side, it also showed the lack of resources for those that wanted to help you, right? You may go to your probation officer and ask for transportation or ask for a job or ask for to take a urinalysis that you could take to a job so you can obtain a job, and it's not there. You go to a church which was simulated there and they really couldn't help you. So in between the hurdles of reentry, it also gave chances, they called them, or luck. You had the wild card man that walked around with cards and you could pick a card, just trying something, just trying your shot at the lottery. You walk into another the chance place and it's telling you bank robbery, drug dealing, used drugs, X, Y, and Z. And these are actually things that those that's re-entering society definitely come across. People will definitely extend the negative to you before they assist you with a positive. So I think it was a real eye opener. After even going through it, it was an eye opener to me that we have each section of the city, and not every section has resources for those that re-enter. Not every section has support, and not every outreach or resource that are there for those that re-enter society have enough resources for to actually help everyone that they can. Right? We end up finding people sitting in jail, sitting in a room, sitting in jail. So it was a real eye opener. I would like to see it done across the city, especially as the center, the the center of each community. I guess in some communities that may be the church, in some community that may be the CDC, in some communities that just may be the park. But it is definitely an eye opener that I encourage um, community leaders throughout the city to organize one in their neighborhood. Thank you for inviting me. Another thing I wanted to say, not only the reentry simulation, but I want to thank all the commissioners and the staff as well for just being there, just being there in these events, just being a face in these events, a representation of CPOC with the open mind. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everybody who shared those reflections. The good thing is, the Institute of Community Justice, they do these reentry simulations pretty often, and they are willing to help you sort of put one together. So maybe this is a chance for us to kind of talk a little bit offline about what this could look like if we wanted to, create something that we do with some of our stakeholders or people that we work with, or even people from the police department, because I think that we all understand, I guess, sort of in theory, that we're all different, but we have all of these systems that treat each other like it's a one size fits all. And that really is not the case. And I will just add just two things. One thing I was struck by was how many of the participants ended up back in jail, and they hadn't even committed a new crime or done anything. And it's like just the simplest thing, just one misstep somehow would end up with you having to go back to jail. And also, as Commissioner Bennett talked about, the chance cards. There was a gentleman walking around and he had wild cards. And it really was supposed to just illustrate how you can be desperate to change your circumstances. And so you will just maybe take a chance to do something. And you have no idea how that's going to pan out. For example, I took a chance and I asked for one of those wild cards. And when I flipped it over, guess what it said? You just lost your wallet with all of your ID and all of the money you had. What do you think that did to my life, or my, as the character I was supposed to be? You know how important it is to have your ID? You need it for everything. So just the smallest thing can just really set you back. And I just want to real quick just also talk about the reentry panel. They had 3 individuals that were justice impacted that talked about their experience. One gentleman is working for SEPTA. He's able to kind of get people jobs, and he goes out to job fairs, and he's a resource for the reentry community. And we also had Tyree Wallace. If you're not familiar with his story, I encourage everybody, just Google him. Tyree was recently released after serving 27 years after being wrongfully convicted. He has since come home, and he has organized an organization called SRC, which stands for Systemic Reformative Change. They have a very, very long list of things that they want to change about justice impacted communities. They have a website, srcnow.org, if you're interested, just to kind of learn a little bit more. We were able to talk to Mr. Tyree and make a connection. And so we're hoping to do some work with him in the future, because all of us understand that when it comes to policing and interacting with law enforcement, once you have been justice involved, your interaction is completely different from some other people. So we hope to maybe do some know your rights training and just be a support as we learn more about some of the things that this particular community is facing. Commissioner Bennett, please. Looks like you're still muted.
Let me look. I wanted to lower my hand. I wanted just to add one more thing. The feeling of going through being denied and denied and denied. I come across a lot of people that that have mental health diagnosis, depression, and anxiety, right? And that was demonstrated as we did the reentry simulation. A lot of people, when we looked at the board, it said stressed, depressed, anxious, unsure, uncertain. And so the process is definitely stressful. And once again, to piggyback on what Director Grimmage said, that board, the support and the resources is needed, but we just have to have a lot more empathy when looking at people re-entering society. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Okay.
I don't know if our communications officer wanted to say anything. I know she's doing a lot of hosting, but I know she was there as well.
Yeah, no, it was a wonderful experience. I learned so much. But I think everyone shared amazing feedback from the training. So not much to add, but yeah, no, but just to piggyback off what Talia said, like those little mistakes that happen, or just things that happen in your life where you lose your wallet, can get you, like, mess your whole day up, your whole next 2 weeks up in your life. So that was really, it was something I learned a lot about.
All right, I think we can move on to the next slide. But I think it's safe to say the reentry simulation, you have not heard the last of it. I'm sure it'll come around again, and there'll be some opportunities for us to think of some creative ways to get some other people in the room to do that simulation as well. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that we had our toy and clothing drive, and we were, preparing to help the 22nd Police District with a holiday event. And so let me tell you, I have been to quite a few celebrations, but this one was one that I will particularly never forget. We had such a good time on Tuesday in the 22nd Police District with the PDAC and CDVS. There were several families that were sponsored, and so we were able to give out toys and gifts. CPOC, we were in charge of game time, so we put together some entertainment for these families. And we were able to sponsor all of the gifts for the moms and dads that brought their children out. So not only did the kids go home with something, but mom and dad were able to go home with something as well. It was a wonderful event. There was a magician. They had some characters. The captain was there. Lots of fun, lots of games, good food. And it was just a chance to have some positive interactions with the community for a couple of hours on a Tuesday evening. I have to give a special shout out, though, to our outreach and training manager, Damon, who went above and beyond. He dressed up as the Grinch for all of the kids. And so it was just a big surprise. And it was hilarious because there were kids that were screaming with delight. And you can see one of these pictures here. Some of them were quite horrified. I don't know what it is about characters. Sometimes you have kids that are just terrified when they see them. So, it was kind of funny to see. But shout out to Damon and the whole outreach team and everybody just for coming together to make this a really nice event. It's always great to partner when we can with the police department and with some of our stakeholders to just have a night of fun and engagement. Next slide. Okay.
I wanted to say something about the event.
Oh, yes. Can we go back one, Jody? Yeah.
I think that, it's really important that people, give back to the community. And so I was so excited that our office helped to fill a gap, right? In terms of, because sometimes the parents don't get, thought about. And so it was really nice when the team was handing the gifts to the moms, the dads, and we were actually able to even bless some grandmothers.
Yes.
That they were so surprised because, their focus, which makes sense, right, is on the children and making sure that they get something. So when the team handed a mom or a dad or a grandmother, just like the light on their face, the smile was just really awesome. But it was so amazing to just be in the space with community partners and really see, because a lot of times this is not nobody sees the good side, right? So this is when police departments are out there in their communities doing good things, right, with the community partners, the PDACs and everything. So I was so glad that I was able to come, and it just really just kind of just warmed my heart to just see community members just come out and work together to ensure that children had a wonderful holiday, but also that parents were honored. And so I just wanted to say, just piggyback on, it was a great event, and I was really proud of the team and the work they did.
Yes, these are the moments that matter. We often say we are trying to build trust with the community, but in order to do that, you have to be present, and you have to be present in moments where good things are happening. You can't just show up when there's been, an incident. And so it's just really good for us to just prove ourselves to be, a good friend, a good partner to many of these police districts, so that when things do happen, people know us and they know that we come in good faith. Okay, next slide. Okay, so part of our outreach function is also community education and just talking to people about oversight and just the history of oversight in Philadelphia and how CPOC has come to be the agency that we are. And so myself and our executive director, we recently went to the Norristown Police Department and we gave a presentation to their Civilian Police Academy class about civilian oversight. And so we talked a little bit about some oversight models and their authority. We talked about who NACOL is and what it means to be a member of NACOL and some of the accreditations that they offer, the history of oversight, what it is and what it is not, because often we understand that people have a perception of what it is, and we have to kind of dispel some myths and explain to people that oversight is not anti-police. Oversight and police departments should have the same goal at the end of the day. And then we talked about the structure of CPOC, how we were created, and ways that people can get involved in civilian oversight, because there are many, many groups that start off very small. And so all it takes is, one or two concerned community members that want to come together, and you can just go from there. So this was a really good opportunity to engage with the Norristown PD. Executive Director McClare, if you want to share anything about your takeaway, I'm sure people would like to hear your perspective.
I thought it was really great, especially because it's a neighboring city, and these conversations are being had all over. And I thought it was really wonderful that they wanted to hear. We offered to give them technical support or to help them start conversations if they want to think about having an oversight board or commission or office. And so I think the partnership was really great. People were very engaged, very curious about how Philadelphia's oversight worked. And so it was a really wonderful event, a lot of really good questions, a lot of really great feedback. And so it was wonderful. And we actually closed it out. We were their last speakers for this session. And so I was happy that we were able to kind of close out their academy with people thinking about police oversight.
Yes, and these kinds of relationships and connections come as a result of some of the work that we have already been doing. We are a standard presenter at the Philadelphia Police Department Civilian Police Academy, and before every recruit class graduates, we give an oversight lecture. So word gets out and gets around, and so they invited us to come to Norristown. Next slide, please. Okay, all right, looks like I'm at the end. So just some upcoming events and important dates you may want to keep in mind. On December 20th, that's tomorrow, there's going to be the State of the City address from the Parker administration about everything that's happened thus far. You can tune in. I believe if you go to any like Instagram or Facebook for the City of Philadelphia, they will have it there. It'll be live streamed. Keep in mind that CPOC will be closed on December 25th for the holiday. And also between the 25th and January 6th, this is holiday season. So happy holidays. People will be celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or Three Kings Day. Whatever it is for you, we wish you and your family a wonderful holiday. And keep in mind, of course, December 31st. That's a big date that's coming up. We talked about those term sheets, so please keep that in mind and continue to advocate for CPOC to conduct independent investigations. And here's a fun picture from our office white elephant get together the other day. So everybody stay safe, enjoy your holiday. And I think that does it for my presentation. If anyone has any questions or comments, I'm happy to hear them now.
Commissioner Elder DeBose, do you have any further comments for Director Grimmage?
I have none. Thank you.
Commissioner Hakeem PA, do you have any comments for Director Grimmage?
No questions.
Director Grimmage, I have no questions. I just would like to thank you for all the work you've done.
Yes, no problem at all. And like I said, everything we do is a result of those MVPs that I talked about before I do my section. So shout out to the outreach and training team for all of your support and hard work every single day for this agency.
I do have one question.
Oh,
who is
yes.
the Grinch again?
Damon.
Big Dame. Big Dame, thank you, Big Dame. What you do with that chain? Thank you all for just reaching out to the community and spreading what CPOC is about and having us as a member of the community, right? And service in the community in more ways than just police oversight.
Absolutely. Looking
Thank
forward to better and bigger in 2025.
Oh, we getting there, right? With that being said, is that the last? That's you said two, right? Ms. McClare, you said two.
Those were the last two divisions.
And with that, we are now at our community comments. Like every meeting, I will be reading the community colloquy to maintain consistency. And with that, I will start reading now. We welcome public comments and feedback. Please address your comments to myself, the chair. If you would like to speak, please provide your full name. We will not be unmuting anonymous participants. If you are a member of the media, please identify yourself as such. You can indicate that you would like to speak by raising your hand or sending a request to the meeting host in the chat. You may also submit public comment through the chat. You will have 3 minutes to address the commissioners. I will keep the time and notify the board when the 3 minutes have elapsed. Any documents or follow-up communications can be submitted to CPOC at phila.gov. Once again, you can email any documents or follow-up to CPOC, the @ at PHILA period GOV. Public comments should be limited to the topics covered in this meeting. All public commenters must refrain from offensive language, threats, or harassment. Participants that have violated these instructions will be removed from the meeting. While we welcome your public comment and feedback, commissioners may not be able to respond to your question or comments during tonight's meeting. Every attempt will be made to follow up by phone or email after the meeting. Once again, you can contact the Citizens Police Oversight Commission by emailing cpoc at phila.gov or calling us at 215-685-0891. That is 215-685-0891. And with that being said, is there any public comments?
We have one person with their hand raised.
We welcome them.
Okay, this is Sylvia Metzer. I will start, or I will allow her to talk.
Good evening, Miss Sylvia.
Actually, I didn't have anything, but thank you.
Once again, thank you for your comment earlier and your questions earlier. Is there anyone else?
Yes, we just had another hand raised. This is Cecilia Thompson. I will start hers.
Good evening.
Good evening. I hope y'all can hear me. This is my first meeting, and I just wanted to comment just to say that it was an eye opener. I'm mainly in the special education disability world, but was reaching out. I think I met one of the outreach people at some event, and they gave me a flyer to say that this meeting was happening. So I'm glad I got the flyer to sign up, and I'm hoping that I can get on some type of list so that I am informed of upcoming public meetings. Thank you for having this. I appreciate it.
Ms. Thomas, thank you for coming to the meeting. I'm pretty sure, once again, thank you to Ms. Grimmage, Director Grimmage, for her outreach work, another effect of her outreach work, and I'm pretty sure you'll be receiving emails, as I receive emails, when we are having public meetings. Also, you can also go to our Instagram page. Could someone provide her with our social media pages? And if you just follow them, they'll pop up on your timeline or in the story some way. But I'm pretty sure you'll get an email. Is there any other comments or questions in the chat?
Not that I see.
And with that said, you know what time it is, commissioners. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move that the meeting for today, having been so thoroughly discussed and handled, I move that we adjourn for the evening.
Commissioner Elder DeBose, motions for this meeting to be adjourned. Does anyone second that motion?
Commissioner PA seconds the motion.
Commissioner PA has seconded the motion. All in favor of adjourning this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for participating. Thank you for the staff for your demonstration. Thank everyone for their questions. And until next time, good evening. Remember our call to action, guys.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
night.
Happy holidays.